Hello, everyone. I'm Roxana, and today I'm joined by Dr. Joan Ifland, a leading expert in the field of food addiction recovery. Dr. Ifland has been pioneering breakthroughs in this area since 1999, and she's the author of the influential textbook, Processed Food Addiction Foundations, Assessment, and Recovery. She's also the founder of the Online Addiction Reset Community, ARC, and has been featured in major media outlets like the Oprah Winfrey Network, Fortune Magazine, and US News and World Report. Dr. Ifland, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, Roxana, I'm thrilled. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Awesome. So today we're taking a closer look at a critical topic that you've titled Twin Scandals, Wellness Programs, and Binge Treatment. Let's start by discussing what do wellness programs and binge eating treatment have in common? How are they connected?
They are not addressing processed foods. So this is the scandal is that we have this emerging, growing, strengthening body of evidence that processed foods are the core problem. They are the root cause of illness, including binging and including all the illnesses most of the illnesses that employers are paying billions of dollars for. And they don't address processed food use. And in the case of the eating disorders community, they're working on a very specific behavior. And it is binge eating, and it's binge eating with purging, and it's binge eating with not eating at all, anorexia. And they know, I think they know that processed foods trigger those behaviors. So processed food, this very active craving part of the brain, it can dominate the rest of the brain. So the processed food industry, which they learned to do from the tobacco industry, we all know this all starts when the tobacco industry buys Kraft, Nabisco, and General Foods. Boom, boom, boom.
Yep.
Really quick. 3 years, 1985 to 1988. And it all starts there. And it's because the tobacco industry brought the business model, the addiction business model, the cravings business model. It's a lot of advertising, deceptive advertising. Oh, processed foods save you time. Well, no, not if you count the amount of time you're sick from them. Or so lots of advertising, but repeat messaging. Oh, processed foods save you time. And after a while, everybody's going around, oh, processed foods save me time. It's not true. It ruins your life.
Convenience food.
Yeah, or it's convenient. Advertising availability, they took out the cigarette vending machines and they replaced them with snack and soda machines. And then the gas stations blew up into, I call them drug dens. They are. You can't buy anything that's not addictive in there. And
even
then
in hospitals,
and the big box grocery stores popped up. And then young age of onset. So it's the 5 A's: advertising, availability, age of onset. They really went after children. They loaded up Lunchables with salt, which activates the same pathway as morphine and opium. And they converted the Marlboro Country Store into the Kool-Aid Wacky Warehouse, which is how you build cravings. You put coupons on the product and then you send them in, and then what they're sending you are triggers. Now that you're wearing your Kool-Aid hat or your Marlboro hat, you're wearing a trigger that triggers everybody around you. It's just so sick. And then, of course, affordability. They got high fructose corn syrup in 1980, and that made it cheap enough to put an addictive substance. Sugar was too expensive, but now they could put high fructose corn syrup, which Rob Lustig has shown us acts on the body just like corn alcohol. And they could put that into children's products. It's just so sick. And of course, then addictive product formulation. They loaded up, they hid, just like they hid nicotine and pyrosine in cigarettes to make them addictive. Now they're hiding very high quantities of high fructose corn syrup and salt and fat in these processed foods. You can hide those substances in there. So you might have bought a pasta sauce, eaten the pasta sauce and gone on about your day, but now it's loaded up with sugar. And now you eat that and then you eat everything else in sight because your cravings are now dominating not just your behavior, but also your thinking brain, your frontal lobe. So that's what happened. And now, and then the diet industry came along and they gave us not enough food repeatedly, repeatedly, repeatedly. You now have this very dysfunctional craving. You didn't ask for this. This is not because
No.
you're lazy or you lack willpower. It's because you have your serotonin, dopamine, opioid, and cannabinoid systems all pumping out cravings, which travel right across the brain and latch onto your behavior centers. What people don't know is that cravings can directly control behavior. And you get that, what I call the zombie walk. Your brain, your thinking brain is, we don't want to be doing this, but you're doing it. Well, that's
Yep.
because a different part of your brain has gotten control of your behavior. Okay, so we know all of that. And that's what sets up binging. Because when you don't eat enough food repeatedly, you wake up a different part of the brain. It's way back here. It's the primitive brain. And that is the fear of famine, food seeking brain. And if you don't eat enough repeatedly, that part of the brain will just wake up. It goes on autopilot. And the only reason for millions of years, whether you're a creationist or an evolutionist, the only reason you're not eating enough is because you don't have enough food, because there's not food there.
It's
The
an
only reason
emergency.
you don't have enough food is because there's not enough food there. And that means that you need to go and look for it more intensely if you're going to survive. We know all of that. So we also know that when you're withdrawing from an addictive substance, from a craving substance, you're going to have lapsing. It's normal. I just, for this paper and this discussion, I reviewed some research on recovery from alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
And it can take 4 years before you really establish the ability, and you kind of rearrange your life so that you're not being triggered. It can take 4 years to set that up and stop lapsing. But that's not, the eating disorder community has ignored all of that. And what they're saying to their patients is, you must eat processed foods. This is so incredibly sick. It's like saying to an alcoholic, you must use alcohol. You must. Or
Why
saying
would they
to a
say that?
smoker, you must.
Why
Well,
why would they say that?
why would they say that? So here's what they argue. So they say, we've noticed that when we tell people to stop eating these processed foods, they start binging on them. That is
Oh, so they
normal.
cannot restrict themselves, because when you restrict yourself, then you're gonna fall even harder. But it's wrong, because when you restrict alcohol, I mean, no one would expect an alcoholic to have a little zip so they can control their cravings. It's can't say the word like right now, but you know what I mean.
So if you're an alcohol counselor and you say to somebody it's time to stop the alcohol and they go out and binge drink, you're like, well, that's normal. It's okay. Come back in. Let's try again. You expect lapsing in early stage recovery. It's in the research. This is how it unfolds. You have to spend a lot of time building skills, thought control skills, emotional control skills, sleep, clean food. I mean, we're starting to call it real food, not clean food. Real food, self-care routines, because those have all gone by the wayside. The cravings and the use of these toxic substances we call processed foods, they've deteriorated, or maybe you never had them because your parents were using, and so they didn't take care of this. You don't have a clue what self-care looks like. You don't have a clue what it means to have a lifestyle where your emotions are stable. You may have to go back and heal a bunch of childhood trauma before you get that. In the meanwhile, the one thing your brain knows is that if you use a processed foods for a few minutes, you'll be numb. Well, it's going to take time to get out of that framework of life management, emotion management, fatigue management, relationship management. Oh, just go and numb. Oh, just go and numb. Oh, just go and numb. No, where you're going to go over here and you're going to like sit quietly for a few minutes. And uh, you know, people are growing up now. They don't know how to make real food. They don't even know what it looks like. So it's going to take time to manage the development of all those skills. And these eating disorder specialists don't allow for that. The
Okay,
other
that's
thing is that I
scary
think
though.
eating disorder specialists don't have enough resources. So to be fair, it took me 22 years to figure out the level of support that can protect somebody from a whole entire lifetime, from the moment of conception, where the processed food craving genes are already turned on because they're turned on in the parents. So that first genetic inheritance, the cravings are already turned on. And then you're in the amniotic fluid, the baby's sampling the amniotic fluid to decide what to prefer. And it's full of processed foods. So the baby's born preferring processed foods. You've got, I realize every cell in my brain developed in a craving brain. So I'm going to have to take some time and get a high level of support for rewiring all of those cells. I need to be in an immersive community where I can get enough time at my schedule. I can just open up my screen and be talking to somebody. It's always there. If there's nothing live, then I can get a recording. But it's always there. It's always there. It's always there. In any moment when I need it, I can connect with my community, which releases oxytocin in the body, and that regulates cravings. And I can, and in a conversation, it stimulates the blood flow away from the craving part of the brain into the thinking brain. It's miraculous and it's easy. It's got to be easy because I need to do it many times a day. So,
That is the power of community.
and eating disorder specialists are not being given access to that kind of resource. So that's the second reason. One, they're not properly trained on stages of recovery and the role of lapsing. Two, they're not being given enough resources to give somebody enough 24-hour a day support. People wake up during the night. But we're around the world. We have teams around the world. People signed up for this all over the world. So if somebody in New York wakes up during the night, they can flip open their screen and they'll be hearing from somebody in Australia. So it works. It works. And the other thing is that the dietitians are right in the middle of these treatment protocols. And they're trained by and work for the processed food industry. So
Yep.
they have a market to protect. And if ever, I don't believe in abstinence from processed foods. I know that might sound shocking. I do believe in progressive abstinence, where you have a goal. And on your good days, you get the goal. And on the days when the industries really get to you, and you have a bite of something, then you develop rebound tools. How do I rebound from taking that bite? So it's a much more complex quote unquote abstinence. We don't call it abstinence anymore. We call it progressive abstinence. You're moving towards, what you want to avoid, where the movement goes. But it's unrealistic in the pressure from this culture to kick up cravings that overwhelm the thinking brain. It's going to happen. So we just treat it like a mosquito bite or a
So
skin
when you
knee.
talk about pressure, that would apply to people in the workforce. If they go and work in a company and in that company the policy or the culture is well, here's the processed food, here's the canteen, this is what you eat. And sometimes it's even pushed on them. What
It's
do these
pushed.
people do?
Yeah. So the workplace wellness programs have the same issue. They're offering dozens and dozens of lovely things. They're just going right around. They're skirting the processed food issue. And workplaces, so a couple of really tragic things. I mean, the tragedy in the eating disorder community is that the treatment's not working. So you have people with this binge eating, which is incredibly destructive, and they're not getting the right treatment, so they're not getting well, and the suffering continues. People are spending tens of thousands of dollars to go to 5-week treatment programs where they're being forced. And it's really sad because they're also being bullied. Like, oh, not wanting to eat processed foods, that's restricting, and that's part of your disease. So processed foods are associated with, and we have a new study, 35 diseases. And so here you have an eating disorder specialist telling you that not avoiding processed foods, which are deadly, they're incredibly toxic. Avoiding processed foods is part of your eating disorder. That just makes my stomach hurt.
I think there's even a name
so
for
go
it.
over to
For people,
workplaces, the twins
yeah,
handles.
for people who eat too healthy, who would at all cost avoid. That's now being named as a disease.
Orthorexia.
Orthorexia. Yeah.
It's unspeakable. It's really unspeakable. And I'm just so glad that you guys are covering this. Okay, so that's scandal number one. Scandal number two, workplace wellness. I have read the research now on the findings that workplace wellness programs don't work. Like eating disorder treatment doesn't work. And it's the same core reason. It's because getting free, I mean, we're not even calling it withdrawal or elimination. I'm using new language, which I think is more accurate and less kind of confrontational, if you will. I don't know exactly what to call it. But we're calling it now, it's a process of getting free from processed foods, escaping processed foods. And I'm working on a video right now. If somebody would like to see this, maybe we'll give this as a free gift. But it's how processed foods are related to 20 diseases. And it's what we know about cancer, diabetes, obesity, depression, anxiety, gut problems, heart disease, chronic infections, allergies, asthma, arthritis, joint pain, muscle pain, multiple sclerosis, dementia, Alzheimer's. All of these diseases are combinations of weakened underlying systems because the cells in those systems have been weakened. So processed foods weaken cell function in 8
down to
different
the
ways.
mitochondrial level.
Mitochondria, cell membrane, the ability of the cell to clean itself out because it's processing all this glucose and fat. The epigenetics, the mitochondria are turned on in the wrong ways. Insulin resistance, so the cell is no longer able to pull glucose in. And something called glycation, which happens when you're processing a lot of fat and sugar in combination, and oxidative stress. So there are 8 ways in which processed foods weaken cell function. So the heart cell, which is supposed to be, expanding, contracting, it's like, So the heart is not working well.
I think Robert Lustig described that as the cell trying to breathe through a straw.
Yeah.
Because it just cannot work at an optimal level?
You don't have enough power
Yeah.
to run the heart, to run the pancreas, to run the liver, to run the kidneys, to run the gut. There's just not enough power in that cell. It's weak. It's flailing around. It can't
Mm-hmm.
do its job. It's really being attacked by processed foods. Okay, so now you have these weak cells, and now you have weak systems. You have weak circulation. You have weak immune. You have weak inflammation control. You have weak brain firing. You have weak digestion, et cetera, et cetera. So now you have these underlying systems not working. And all of those 20 diseases, what are they? They're simply combinations of weak systems.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's heart disease, which is the number one killer worldwide now, or whether it's a gut problem, heart disease comes because the heart's overworking to carry all the extra weight that people are carrying, and the other thing to remember is like blood. The blood of a person who's eating processed foods is thicker because it's got all that glucose in it, and so blood pressure has to increase to push that blood through your system. So now your heart with these weakened cells is having to push this blood. It has to work harder to push the blood, carry the extra weight. And the other thing, of course, is sugar is getting under the cells that line the arteries, and it's pushing up those cells. It's kind of calcifying under there and blocking the arteries. That
And the
is all
inflammation too.
processed foods. That's all processed foods. That's all processed foods. And here you have these eating disorder specialists. Oh, if you don't eat the processed foods, it's because you're sick. No. Oh my gosh, stop. I just want to, scream from the roof. Stop saying that. Okay. So now you go over to the wellness programs, and the opportunity is incredible because in a workplace, the employer has control of the communications. So
Yes.
you can put accurate information and you can make it vivid. You can make it clear. You can make it believable. You can make it credible in a way that you don't get that in the outside world. Maybe you're in YouTube and you're finding one video here and one over there, and you with this doctor and that doctor. But in a workplace, you can consistently deliver accurate messaging in a degree of detail that makes it really, really clear. Nobody's doing that. So you look through, so I've read the literature. Okay, now I get it. I have all the evidence. Workplace programs don't work. Nonetheless, of course, workplaces are spending billions of dollars on them every year. And then the second thing that I wanted to see in the research was, what do these workplace programs consist of? Nobody is offering a level of support for getting free from processed foods that would actually work. You can't just give somebody a cooking class. Like you can't just take an alcoholic over to the faucet and say, I want to talk to you about filling your glass with water instead of alcohol. No, no, it does not work. These, our brains now, after 40 years of this addiction business model from the tobacco food industry, these are deeply, deeply seated cravings. But the other thing that employers have control over, and you have to do this very gradually. First, you have to educate about the truth, about what processed foods are doing to every cell in the body. And then it makes sense to educate people about 5-minute meals. 5-minute meals, 5-minute meals, 5-minute meals. It doesn't make any sense to have a chef, some fancy chef, come in and do a cooking class for a meal that takes 15 minutes to prepare. To me, it's you learn how to fill a crock pot before you leave the house in the morning. These workplaces have cafeterias. And yes, you can start out by labeling, accurate labeling, which does help. We do have good research that label, even just accurate labeling, will prevent people from buying bad food. But you need to have like convenient boxes of meals that employee can pick up on the way out the door, so that as they're driving past the fortress of fast food places out there, they can just keep saying, no, I got food in the car. I got food in the car. I got food in the car. Driving home from work is like running a gauntlet of triggers from the fast
Yes.
food places. And so you teach people it's faster to set up your crock pot in the morning or grab these meals on the way out the door. It's faster to do that than to go to the fast food places, get in a fast food line.
I have a freezer full of beef, and that's my convenience food because I just grab it, put it in the air fryer, and it's done. It's I don't even have to watch it. I just set it
Set the
and it's
timer.
done.
I
Yep.
got an Instant Pot this year. Roxana, I just think that Instant Pots are the breakthrough.
You can make the best oxtail soup, like
Yes,
everything.
I made
I
oxtail
know.
soup for the first time in my life. It was said so these devices you can air fry, you can pressure cook, you can saute, you can slow cook. Oh, I wish I'd gotten one a long time ago. All my meals are now just a few seconds. Go set them up. But I do have the luxury of working at home. And I agree. The variety of foods that I eat has increased. And and you can make any volume. I got the larger one, but I feel like I should get a smaller one too.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
got a Ninja and a Tasty for the air frying. Put steak on it,
I
20 minutes. I've never eaten such a juicy steak.
know you can't get this good. It's not even this good in the best steak places because
I know. And they actually marinate in seed oil, so I'm not going out to eat anymore. You can get good food.
Yeah.
Robert Lustig actually said it's not food, it's food-like products. And so convenience food is really mislabeling what you get. It's not food.
Yeah, it's fake food. I like this new nomenclature we're using. It. There's fake food and there's real food.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So convenience food is not the appropriate name. But you have these binge eating disorders. So what do you tell people who are in the workforce, like practical tips? What to
So
do?
here's the thing: is the number one driver of behavior is the people around us. We have this big fitting in drive in our brains because, again, whether you're a creationist or evolutionist, we're not big enough mammals to fight off a predator. We can't fight off a lion or a tiger or a pack of hyenas. We can't. We're not big enough to do that. We can't even fight off a boar or we're just not big enough.
Yep.
But in a group, we can fight off anything.
We are tribe people.
So our brains are very tuned in to fitting in, to copying. And plus, if you have somebody in your tribe who knows how to find water, you want to go with that person. You want to copy that person. They know how to find shelter. You're going to copy that person and you're going to live. They know how to hunt. They know how to find food. They know how to dig up food. You're going to copy those people and you will live. If you copy those people, you will live. They know how to survive. So we have these very, very strong copy functions. And it's why our programs work. So I'll give you an example. We had a person came into our program who had been just in the grips of bulimia really pretty bad for a couple of decades and binge purge. And they were doing it multiple times every day. So in the first week they had 2 episodes, and the next week they had 1, and then the third week for about a month they had none. And then they took a new job and they kind of had a series of lapses, which we just patiently walked through with them, and then they got back on track. And they had been to 3 residential eating disorder programs, none of which had worked. And but they knew what to do. They knew just to open their screen. You can listen to programming, accurate programming, 24 hours a day, 15 hours a day live. And then we have a big video library. So when there's nothing live going on, you can watch one of our videos and you get a daily podcast. And the podcasts are archived. So I think we have like 1,000, probably well over 1,000 archived podcasts. And they are conversations among our members. So you can immerse yourself literally 24 hours a day in people who have control. And that's exactly what she did. She just said, I'm staying home. I have enough food in my house for a week. I am going to sit on my sofa and I'm going to listen. And her mirror neurons just swung right around. We're in a tribe now that doesn't do that. We're in a tribe that eats this way. And it's a very natural, easy, simple, no effort process, but you just listen. And I talked to her recently about what it was like at the beginning. And she just kept saying this. All I had to do was listen. All I had to do was listen. All I had to do was listen. But you have to be listening to the right information. So the idea with the workplace wellness programs is so interesting because I saw studies of programs where they changed the food in the environment, but people did not get better. It's because they ate the food in that environment, nice clean food in that environment. And then they went home and ate and got triggered on the way home and ate the bad food at home. So that didn't work. Changing the food in the environment doesn't work. And education doesn't work. So they had another evaluation of an education program. But when you put the two together, and then you understand the role of messaging, then you just need some skill building. You need some basic education. Oh yeah, cause effect. Processed foods, pain. Processed foods, this kind of pain. Processed foods, that kind of pain. Processed foods, brain fog. Processed foods, fatigue. Processed foods, irritability. Processed foods, depression. Processed foods, high cholesterol, just down the list, and to show the mechanism. So in this video that I'm working on right now, which your audience is completely, I'd be happy to make it available. They can certainly ask for it. Then, okay, so now you've got accurate information, which none of the wellness programs are providing. I don't think any of the eating disorder programs are saying, oh, processed foods cause these 20 diseases, but you have to eat them. I don't think any eating disorder programs are talking that way. But in a workplace environment, you can provide that information to your employees. Now you have something that is so valuable. You have common knowledge. So you understand what it means when you bring in the XYZ. Oh, I'm just going to bring in this morning because everybody loves it. Oh, we're going to order this for lunch as a treat for everybody for working so hard. Now you know that you're hurting because you have this cause and effect information and it's clear. You know that you're hurting everybody that you're getting those quote unquote treats for. And you know exactly how you're hurting them. And you can say, I don't know who's diabetic in my environment, but probably 20% of the people in this building are diabetic. So I am not going to bring in foods that make diabetes worse now. I know how that works. I know that it's, impacting the insulin receptors and making the blood thick. And I've got a vivid picture of it now. So it's both messaging and food availability. It doesn't do any good to do one without the other because people, they may change their it's just the research. I love the research. There was this one study where they did that. They changed all the food and then they looked at what people are eating and they took some, so they did their diet analysis. Oh, they're eating so much better. But then there's this zinger at the end of the study. The health profile didn't change.
Something wasn't right.
So we're really going to start focusing on workplaces. We have the science basis to be accepted by employers, and 6.5 years now of running the ARC and making it very easy. We understand how to make it easy, really effortless. A
Yeah.
lot of workplaces will allow people to listen to programming while they're at their desk. Yeah, so those are the twin scandals. Eating disorder treatment doesn't work, and wellness programs are not working, but we have good
You have to
answers for
combine
them.
them. So, or you have to combine the knowledge with the community and with the messaging. The messaging, I think, is often here, have that poison, but take it in moderation. And obviously that's not working.
No, it keeps the cravings alive. It keeps the cravings alive. It keeps the obsession alive. It keeps you in the grips of the advertisers, the neurologists who work for the food industry. It keeps your craving pathways sensitive and reactive, so that in a moment your brain can flood with cravings. It's very sad.
I kind of went through my own journey with that, and I often was told, if you restrict yourself, you're just setting yourself up for failure. And everyone says that. It's even strangers on the internet will tell me, if you don't ever eat a piece of cake at a wedding or so, that's a joy in Grimda's life. What?
Roxana, let's talk about that for a second. I've given that a lot of thought recently because of the stories of people who have like good control, good abstinence for years. And they do that. They go to a wedding, they have a piece of cake, and then they're coming into our programs 10 years later, having not
Yeah.
been able to get control. I want to talk about another factor, and that is what we were talking about before, which is the drive to be normal,
Mhm.
the drive to fit in. Now, that really separates processed food cravings and addiction and abstinence, all those concepts, into a different category from any other substance recovery. Because for any other substance, you can set up your day so that you don't see anybody else using.
Mhm.
But in processed food recovery, everybody you see is using. Maybe you get your household clean, which can really make a big difference. Maybe, you start using your Instapot, your air fryer, and all this gorgeous food is
Yeah.
coming out and on the table, and gradually your household members shift over to it. I do have a new video on how to help your household. If your members would like to have that, I'd be happy to share
I
that.
might need that too.
Yeah. So maybe at home you're not seeing it anymore, but most people don't have that luxury, that protection. People in your household are using. Maybe you've asked them not to use in front of you, but it's still the smell and the availability and the proximity. It's all there. And so that is a huge difference. When we're eating real food only, there's nobody else like us around us. It's another one of the reasons why our programs are designed the way they are, so that you can constantly persuade your brain that there is somebody else in your environment who's not using. You just open your screen, there they are. They're there. They're there. They're still there. They're always there. So
On
it's
TV
the it's
everywhere.
the brain will fight. It will hate feeling abnormal. And when we say to ourselves, well, I'm not going to eat processed foods, I'm only going to eat real foods, now we are abnormal. And I think people just hate that. And they really, it's a very deeply seated survival reaction. No, 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 no. There's a part of the brain that's fighting abstinence. It's another part of the brain. It's not just the food seeking brain or the craving brain or the stress brain. Now you have this we've got to be normal brain fighting this idea of abstinence. And the brain decides what's normal based on what it sees the most. So in alcoholism, you can go to a meeting once a day or a couple of times a week or even twice a day in early stage, and you can kind of reorient your brain. Okay, it's normal not to drink. And then you go through your day, you don't see people drinking, you go to a meeting at night, you're good. We don't get that in processed food recovery. So the other amazing thing about creating common knowledge in a workplace, now it's normal. It's normal. Oh, I'm only eating real food. I don't eat. Americans are eating 73% of their food in processed foods. But
Yes.
I'm in an environment where it's normal to only eat real foods. We extend all this education and skill building to families of employees. Now they have two big parts of their lives where it's normal to eat only real food, the workplace and the home. We can do this.
I've even read things like it would be child abuse to withhold donuts and birthday cake and basically slow poisons. It's child abuse to withhold that. Actually, mainly in the type 1 community. So for children of type 1 diabetics, if you want to go low carb route, they say, well, these kids will develop an eating disorder and they are going to resent you. These were all things I heard and I actually believe. My son was diagnosed at age 8. And, well,
Roxana, it's so bad out there.
yep.
It's so bad. It's just why I'm so deeply grateful to you and Florence for just putting the truth out and putting the truth out and putting the truth out and putting the truth out. You know, there's this terrible, horrible, it's just vicious, it's wicked thing going around. Oh, if you make it at home, it's okay. It's the ultra processed foods that are the problem. So I'm really grateful to Florence for doing a special program with me on that. And yeah, I do. I have just a kind of a note of hope, which I did write a really rigorous academic paper on what's going on with the eating disorder treatment. And I have I found a good publishing partner. So somebody who works at a university and is editing the paper, and we already know where we're going to submit it. So when people are assaulted with this, it's lying, it's gaslighting, it's reality altering, it's abusive. There's so many words for being told that you must eat processed foods or you're sick. Anyway, we're going to have a paper on it probably next spring, I hope.
Perfect. I'd love to see that.
Yeah.
So
you can see all the research that supports this position and how absurd it is for somebody to tell you that not eating processed foods is a kind of sickness. It's so icky.
It is so weird. I mean, all these foods that are now in the stores, they have not been available 100 years ago. These foods are novelties. They are designed in a lab. They are designed with a bliss point in mind to be addictive and to be irresistible. All that makes me like incredibly angry. But now eating meat, my mood is better, so I can talk about it without shouting.
I know. It's you kind of when you look behind you and you see how awful your life would have been had you not escaped.
Oh yeah.
It's just like escaping a war zone. It's getting free from a prison. People can't see it until they're free. It's like
there's so much noise in the brain that people don't see healthy signals. And once they tune out that noise, they will see if they eat normal, healthy whole food, what then one bite of the other food will do to them. But unless they clean up the diet, it's not going to happen.
You know what? I didn't finish my thought, but let me finish my thought, Roxana, which is if you get a lot of training in relapse recovery and you're
Mhm.
in a rock solid community and you can get to them 24 hours a day, they're always there, always there, always there. Then when you go to that wedding, the thing about weddings is that they go on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And the only people around you are people who are eating processed foods, and the emotions are running very, very high, positive, but they're running very high. And your brain is flooding, 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 flooding with cravings for hour after hour after hour until the cravings have control of your behavior. Is So if somehow you manage to leave that wedding without having had that cake, then what's going on in your brain? It is freaking out. We are so abnormal. We are so abnormal. I've got to stop this. Your brain is now dedicated to stopping this only eating of real food. And so you've woken up a force in your brain that could be stronger than your commitment to abstinence. So we have this peculiar, I could do a whole program on this, I probably should, but we have this peculiar and singular and unique challenge, which is how to prevent the abnormal brain from waking up and forcing us, you're going to be normal. Even if it means eating a poison, you're going to be normal. It's a dominant force in the brain, and people don't give it enough credit. You might be better off just having the darn cake and on your way home, getting back into your community. You have a portable community. It's there 24 hours a day. Okay, I had the cake, but I'm back in a place where it's normal not to eat that stuff. I don't know. This is it's in a way, it's a dangerous conversation
I think
because,
it is.
because but it's also an honest conversation. People
Yes.
who lapse because their brain will not let them be abnormal anymore. I think we have to describe the phenomenon and give them a way of just feeling abnormal year after year after year for the whole rest of your life. So nobody's talking about the stress of feeling abnormal, but I think if you really hone in on what are the circumstances where people lapse the most, it would be social situations. But that goes back to the workplace. It's so
Yeah.
important. Now you've got a workplace where you feel normal, and you've got your home life where you feel normal, eating only real foods, and that's more sustainable.
So I did go to my son's wedding, and there was the wedding cake, and I didn't eat it. I did get a little bit on my finger and thought I just licked it off absent-mindedly, like it was a tiny bit. And then I thought, oh, well, now you had wedding cake. And that was good for me.
Oh, all right. So
And
there are many
no,
ways to cope with this.
yes, there are ways to cope with it. For myself, I know that if I have that one bite, it's kind of like the addict's credo. One bite is too many, 1,000 bites is not enough. From
Right.
past experience, 30 years of yo-yo dieting,
Yeah.
I know that I always fall off the wagon, and not just for days. I can't get myself back on the wagon for years. So that would be like a risky thing for me to do. But my mindset shifted. So I don't
Mhm.
think I'm abnormal. I think everyone else is, because eating poison is not normal. When I go through the grocery store,
No.
it's almost like nauseating to see all these bright colors. That's not food. So it depends. Like some people could. Yeah, the other thing that's maybe important to know is too that when they have a mishap, when they give in at a wedding, it doesn't destroy the progress. So I might even
Right.
be at a point where I could say I'm going to have that cake. This is not going to destroy my progress, and I will pick up where I left off. So it's not a
I think
failure.
that's a very, very good point there. So we know that in the 12-step world, that you would be humiliated for eating the cake. You would be
Yeah.
standing up in front of the room. You would
Oh,
be taking a new chip. You would have to sit in the back of the room in some of those fellowships for 90 days. You wouldn't be allowed to talk. Your sponsor would fire you. You'd be rejected, and you'd have to get a new sponsor. So this is so stressful. I
mm,
think it actually contributes to lapsing.
yep,
Because
I
the
see that.
stress pathway lies right next to the craving pathway, and stress will activate cravings.
Yeah, they will
So
just feed
somebody
into
would
each
say,
other.
I'd rather just stay in the lapse than go through that.
Yeah.
They don't go back. So that's another thing that I think it's not helpful. It's not helpful. So people are lapsing and then they're just lying about it to avoid the humiliation. Or every food plan I've ever looked at has addictive substances on it. They all have gluten. They don't address excessive salt. Many of them, if not most of them, have dairy. Um, they,
They have vegetable oils. It really needs to be, if you say just keto, it's not just that. It has to be clean keto. It has to be whole foods. No grains, no sugar, no
well, even
flour.
if you're doing plant based, like I've seen people get off of, struggling with keto and get onto plant based and do better. So it depends on what your reactive profile is. If you have a big
Right.
reaction to animal fats, then keto is going to be a struggle, and going over to plant based is going to be the end of the struggle. So I've seen it go both ways, and I think it depends on what you're sensitive to. But
Yes.
all those food plans. I can give you research on plant based, paleo, Mediterranean, keto, carnivore. I can give you a study on any of those showing how they put the same profile of diseases into remission. And it's all the processed food related. Yeah. So, I mean, going through a process of figuring out which food plan is best for you is also very valuable. There's no one food plan. We
And the
customize the
most
plans,
important thing is to leave out the
the processed
ultra
foods,
processed or
the
processed foods. Yep.
craving foods. Yeah.
Awesome. Is there anything before we wrap this up? Is there anything we missed?
I always love the opportunity to say this. This is not your fault. It's not your fault that tobacco came into processed foods. It's not your fault that high fructose corn syrup was allowed on the market and is
Yeah.
now used so extensively. Other countries have banned it. We have not. It's not your fault if you're in the US that the processed food and the pharmaceutical industries have, like, I think the ratio for the pharmaceutical industry is 9-1, 9 lobbyists for each legislator. It's not your fault. It's not your fault
Inconceivable.
that they're allowed to advertise. It's not your fault that they're allowed to run the school breakfast and lunch programs. It's not your fault that they're allowed to addict children, newborns. None of this is your fault. It's not your fault that you were in a weight loss program that woke up your fear of famine, food seeking brain. It's not your fault that you've been in an eating disorders program that shamed you, manipulated you, bullied you into eating processed foods and maintaining the cravings. That's also not your fault. It's not your fault that people push this on you. It's not your fault that it's everywhere. It's not your fault that you have intense cravings for these. It's not your fault that you lose control. None of that is your fault. You just live in an incredibly toxic, highly sophisticated toxic environment. And just know that we're working night and day to make it easier for you to survive. It's not your fault when your children are screaming for processed foods. You haven't done anything wrong. But now the hope is that you can build the skills and be surrounded with people who make it normal to eat real foods only. And there's a lot of hope. There's a lot of hope there. If you are in a workplace, please contact us. We're developing materials, free materials that you can carry to your HR manager or your manager so that they can get educated about I mean, these healthcare costs. I saw a chart the other day. I was not aware of this. So it's a chart of how employee compensation is growing, but it's not showing up in your wages. It's showing up in what you're being paid to pay your healthcare premiums, your insurance premiums. What you're getting from your employer is growing, but it's all growing in the area of how they're giving you money to pay your health insurance premiums. Basic wages are not growing. So, gosh, carry this to your we'll give you videos that explain what's going on, and carry it to your manager, carry it to your HR manager or your chief financial executive, whoever's in charge.
I love that message, the message of hope. I think it all hinges on hope and not blaming the victims. So thank you very much for joining us,
Thanks
Dr.
for having
Ifland.
me.
And we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Good to be with you, Roxana. Take care.
Thank you.